Dakota, what's going on, man?
Hey, Sean.
How are you doing?
Good. What's on your shirt?
My shirt, Malama Mushrooms. Shout out Benjamin. When I was living in Hawaii, I met this guy at an arts festival. He made these. Are you familiar um, with the everything that mushrooms as superfoods? Kind of like some people look them as nootropics and things like that.
Like chaga?
Chaga, yeah,
That's
lion's mane, yeah.
that's
He
all I know.
So Malama mushrooms, he grows mushrooms out of Hawaii and kind of puts them into a powder for teas and drinks, whatever. I love them. This is a great time to plug Benjamin. He's just a cool guy. I take it. I just put it in my protein shake in the morning. Keeps me sharp, I hope.
Gotcha. All right. Just
Dakota,
curious. Couldn't tell what it was.
I was gonna say people like me need all the help they can get.
I don't know about that.
I'm surprised I'm not seeing you walking on your treadmill.
When I'm being recorded, I try not to be obnoxious. I've got a walking treadmill. If I'm just like this the whole time, stomping along, I'm
Hey,
like, I'm out.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Well, dude, so I was thinking about the time that we met. I was like kind of preparing for this. I was thinking about how we met. And do you remember meeting at Ginger and Tucker's little dinner party out back?
Yeah, sitting on the back deck.
Yeah. So, I was living in their Airbnb, and it's a beautiful property in Bend, Oregon. They're right on the river. They have a pickleball court in the backyard, and it's so like serene and quiet. And the neighborhood is full of cool retired people, right? Everyone's 55 plus and still super active. And Emma and I were kind of invited because it was basically in our backyard. It'd be weird to not be invited.
Yeah.
And you were there, and I mean, were really the only person that was closer to my age for sure than anyone else,
Don't
right?
forget Clayton. Clayton was there.
Clayton was there. Clayton was there. And but there was definitely like a difference. Like I could tell they kind of treated me like, oh, like, you're a kid in the Airbnb, right? And they
Sure.
definitely like looked at you as like a peer, right?
Hmm.
And that just sparked my curiosity, right? Like one of these things is different than the other. I was like, well, Dakota's in this neighborhood. He's younger than everyone, but he seems to be living the same lifestyle, very outdoorsy. And dude, that's a really, I was like, I just want to hear what this guy's story is. And that's the kind of what made me just like so curious about what you had going on.
Yeah. I mean, it was interesting landing in Bend because we'd traveled for 3 years before and we'd been in our van and just rolling around doing big bike tours, like a couple 3 month bike tours, one across the US, one around Europe through like 13 countries. And I'd been running my business while we were traveling, but we've been getting kind of bored with just
Hmm.
go, go, go. Like you do anything, even if it's amazing, long enough, then you're going to want some variety. That variety for us was missing community. And so we sought out a place that would be a good spot to land. And some friends happened to have a place we could crash in for a little while. And then we wound up buying in that neighborhood that
Yeah.
you're talking about. And yeah, it's interesting. Kind of, I mean, I'm not retired, but I'm I live like I'm retired
Yeah.
because I yeah I've hired enough people that they kind of cover the day to day stuff, and I get to do what those like 55 to 75-year olds are doing most of the time.
Dude, lot to unpack there. A lot of things that
Yeah,
we've never unpacked in depth. I'll tell you, I had the last episode I had Mark Green on. He was a running back of mine on my team in high school. Went to play college ball, and we've been good friends. But it was funny. I mean, I've been friends with Mark since I was sixth grade, and we learned so much about each other on that episode. It was like it's just so cool. It takes some time to like dive in and
yeah,
see what's
because
up.
you don't really ask those kind of questions usually, where you're. But I mean, it's a great chance to pin your friends down. Be like,
Yeah.
hey, we used to talk about football. Today we're talking about your feelings.
Yeah, exactly. Well, then I'm gonna fire with the first question that comes to my mind, and that is, you kind of just breezed over the fact, right, that you had a business and you were bike touring, right, and you were traveling, and doing the van life for a few years. You know, I'd like to understand unpacking that a little bit. Like how are you able to manage it? Kind of like, you know, you could share a little about, I do know what type of business you have, but you know, how are you able to manage it? And you know, what things have you like, what were some of the challenges that came along with that?
Yeah. So I guess it started with us living in Portland. My wife Chelsea and I living in Portland, and I had a business. We do like finance stuff for upgrading your home, basically to make it more
Hmm.
green or sustainable. And I'm a mechanical engineer, but got into that wayward way. And I was just working way too much in 2011 through 2013, doing well financially, but it just felt like I was headed for a cliff. And so we were in contract on a place in Portland. We were going to build an ADU in the backyard, like a mother-in-law unit to live in, and then rent out the main property, kind of like fire, financial independence, retire early stuff. And then I realized I didn't want to go through the building process. I didn't want to be in Portland. I didn't want to be working this hard. And so we bought a camper van instead, broke the contract on that house. And like 6 months later, we were on the road. I built the whole van out.
Dude, was that a tough decision or was that,
Yeah.
did it feel sporadic at the time? I mean, that's a,
Oh man. Yeah. Chelsea's cool because she was very supportive. She had left paid work a year before. We just talked about the benefits to that after reading this book called Your Money or Your Life,
mm,
and just thinking about what's the actual income you're bringing in relative to the amount of time. Like, what's your hourly if you are working 14-hour days and you have to have a second car and eat out and like you don't have time for your friends and family. So she had stopped working, and she basically said, "You're the one working. If you don't want to do that to that degree, I'm willing to move into a tiny house or whatever, because we're both very driven and we like to work, but we also like the balance." And
yeah.
we just strayed pretty far away from that. So it was tough though. I mean, I stepped away from really good income and lost a lot of it. It was a total time for money trade to hire people to take on my client load and go head out in the van. But it was only gonna be a 4 month trip. So I was like, all right,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
what
yeah.
I said. Dakota, I just came back from Hawaii. Every single person I met that lived there, how'd you live here? Oh, we came here for like a vacation, and then a couple years later, we just didn't go back. We just bought
Totally.
everything we need. Um, dude, that's awesome. That you know, I never heard that story about like how you guys, you know, kind of like left and um, what what are you doing with your time? Right? Because I think that's a really important question. That I do know the answer a little bit too, but not
Yeah.
even so specifically. Like I know, you know, he's learning piano, Italian, all this stuff. We can dive into that. But so as you know, I'm an entrepreneur as well. And something that I'm starting to realize is it's not just how many dollars can we make. It
Mhm.
really is about that time because dude, for example, I made a little shift where just starting this week got a little bit more time back into my life. And like this morning, for the first time in such a long time, I got to do like a full 90-minute lift followed by like 90 minutes of cardio. And then like I actually had time to stretch this
And he's
morning.
still coherent to ask questions, folks.
Yeah. You know, usually like I love working out. I think it just makes me feel good. I have fun doing it. But usually,
Yeah.
you know, my workouts are like, okay, like what can I jam in and be impactful in 45 minutes? Like, which is great, you know, because you know it's all about being impactful, but you gotta like do something with your time. So how do you kind of choose what you're doing, you know, with your time? I know that's a loaded
Good
question.
question. Yeah, so I'm a lot more flexible now because most of the day-to-day stuff for my business is handled. So it freed up a lot of these work hours that normally would be spent doing something to earn money. And so what I've tried to do is just pursue my curiosity in a way that's not tied to monetary returns,
Got
which
it.
is an extreme luxury. But what's interesting about it is that those interests have turned into monetary returns. So my blog that I started about van life, because I was so frustrated with searching forums while I was trying to build out my van in 2013, that I just decided to just do a brain dump and create a website about it. And that's had like a couple million hits in the last 8 years and is a business. like brings
Yeah.
in affiliate revenue and stuff like that. But I do it just for fun. And then, there's a weekly newsletter with it that I do as well. And that's just like my creative expression. But I've met a bunch of people, including a couple people who invited me to do some commercial investing stuff. So I've gotten into income making opportunities through that. That doesn't answer the question though. So mostly what I'm spending my time on is a mix of, I would say, giving back and personal stuff. So like I mentor 5 or 6 guys on kind of a formal way with their business, or like just we do
Yeah.
a monthly
Yeah.
call and talk about what's going on in their life. And then,
I mean, that's awesome, dude.
oh, it's one of my favorite things that I do. And I also, so yeah, I've learned piano, Italian, because I'm getting my Italian citizenship. We can talk about that. But I'm just trying to pursue something that feels like growth. That, like, will this enlarge me as a human rather than, can I watch another Netflix special every night? That's not going to enlarge me long term. It's fun
Mm,
sometimes. Like you play a video
yeah.
game with your friend once a month. That's fun. You go hang out. But trying to pursue things like that, or like I'm working on a crypto project because I wanted to learn about crypto, and you can buy Ethereum all day long and not learn anything about it and just like watch the price go up and down while your stomach lurches.
That's what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I just decided I wanted to get involved in a project. So I joined one that's kind of in the same space as my work, called Bacon, ironically, since I'm vegan.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
um, but it's been really interesting. I'm now a moderator on the project, and I'm pretty involved in the workings of it. And it's given me a really good insight into what sucks about crypto and what's cool about crypto. So things like that, where, there might be monetary return from that. It might just be an intellectually interesting thing.
Yeah. You
But
said piquing, your curiosity. You also said helping towards long-term growth. And now, when I called you to see if you wanted to hop on this, I guess that was last week. You also you said something about happiness. And as you know, or you may not know, the name of the podcast is Happiness, the Ultimate Discipline, right?
yeah,
And we were I remember specifically we were talking about your house, right? Dakota lives in Bend, Oregon, in a neighborhood that's appreciated quite a bit over the last few years, almost, like crazy amounts. And of course, my first thought was, dude, cash out. And he said something that was really, I guess I would say it was humbling. I would say, as you said, luckily, Sean, like I don't necessarily need that additional revenue. Of course, you'd love the money, but like you don't need it. And I don't think that's going to aid in my happiness. So
I
the
said that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, man. Yeah. I think afterwards you're like, fuck, there's the podcast line.
There's my smart line for the podcast.
Yeah.
No, I
Well,
mean, go ahead. Sorry.
no, that concept, Dakota, is really one of the reasons that I love hanging around you. I love I really was excited to reach out to you about this podcast, is because I know people that have maybe a bunch more money, right, or whatever, but I feel like you really, really prioritize your happiness in a way that I don't want to say relates to me. I think everyone happiness is unique, but like I can understand and respect, right? It's a combination of growth and then of course like giving back, right? And I think giving back is something everyone loves to do. I really do. I think if everyone had the means to, 99% of people, they would do that. Um, and everyone does have the means to give back in some way. But the growth is really what I want to talk about, Dakota, because like you know, you mountain biking. That's really that was one of the first things I heard about you was Clayton's like, Sean, let's go like rip up these trails, and my friend Dan and I like can't keep up with them, and they were saying that like you were like extremely fast on a mountain bike, and you know I know you, and like being fast on a mountain bike doesn't matter to you, but I can assume that it is it is a discipline of yours, right? To train your body, train your mind, show your commitment to something. Let's use mountain biking. I know you played baseball, pretty seriously for a while. Either one of those, like how how do you think that like chasing something challenging, growing yourself, learning a language aids in long-term happiness? Because, clearly you mentioned that's a priority of yours.
Yeah, that's a great question. So what's
Long
interesting,
question.
yeah, no, it's great. But what's interesting with mountain biking is that I definitely chased speed and numbers for a while when I got
Thanks
into,
for admitting
yeah,
it.
oh man, yeah, Strava much. So
Yeah,
just
yeah.
like chasing these, there's a competitive site called Strava if you don't know about it, but it was it was crazy. I mean, every ride I was going for a PR or what they call KOM, where you're like the fastest on a trail or whatever. And
Yeah.
yeah, but so the way I look at things is I want to be good at it. I don't want to get into something and just like middle along. And so with mountain biking, I just went full on when I moved to Bend. Like I'd ridden a lot, but when we were traveling, I did a lot of other things. I hiked with Chelsea. It wasn't as aggressive. You move to Bend, and everybody here's a retired pro or like great at two things. And all of a sudden, I'm going out with guys who are like literally going to Olympic training camp that summer. I'm like, first of
Yeah.
all, warn me when you invite me on that ride,
Yeah.
so I don't have to go. And second of all, it's like you got to show up and you got to throw down. And so I just got really into it. I was doing like 100-mile mountain bike races and just putting a lot of energy
Hmm.
in, and also learning how to ski. And I was climbing pretty hard and just trying to do it all, but it was all physically focused. And I'd shifted so far to physical that that's like 2019, beginning of 2019, I realized it just wasn't serving me. I wasn't growing in the way that I wanted to. It felt very lopsided. And so I started kind of pushing back. I sold all my ski stuff, downhill ski stuff. And then COVID dropped, and it just gave me this opportunity to have a totally clear schedule. Because I ran like a men's group. I had a workout group I did twice a week. I had political
Yeah.
volunteering, like so much stuff. And all that was
Well,
scraped away.
even we're talking about things that obviously push you outside your comfort zone, but even within that, you find a comfort zone, right? So
Sure.
what I found was through COVID, I started running, right? Because I'm a basketball player, so I started running, and we went on a couple runs around the river in
Yeah, Sean
Bend.
had a tow rope, pulled me around because I bike, I don't run. I'm back there.
Yeah, something like that. Well,
Or
dude,
you
so
walked and I ran. I don't remember.
when we moved to Hawaii, Emma started swimming a lot, and I was
Mm.
like, dude, I was like, oh yeah, I don't need to swim, like I run, and I realized that was like a defense mechanism, right?
Yeah,
I
because
mean,
it's impossibly hard.
yeah, I can swim really fast for like a good 50 meters,
It's
but
true weightlifter. I did that
yeah,
in
right,
college. Yeah, it's
yeah.
like get to the edge and just hang on it.
Yeah, it's like a lifeline, dude. But versus like these people, I mean, but we live right at the Kona Ironman starting line. And like
Oh
just to
wow.
see people will go out there every single morning, swim the 2 miles. I'm talking with 8 foot waves coming. I'm,
Yeah.
I'm like, first of all, are there sharks about to get me? Like, these waves, you're gonna drink water. Like there's just so much going on that trust me, I did not get good at swimming, but it just made me start thinking about like or even weightlifting, right? Like I was a football player, just got into heavy weightlifting
Mhm.
versus like, I see Emma in the gym always doing like, lateral stuff and rotation that like takes a little more flexibility.
Yeah.
And I think it's good to, always test your comfort zone, even if you're doing something that should be challenging the comfort zone.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Even
Then as far as like happiness related to that, when you're pushing
mhm,
your comfort zone, for me, when I'm learning, I tend to be happier. And I just wasn't learning anymore with the physical stuff. Like I'd done backcountry skiing, I was climbing into the 512, 513 range, like hard stuff, especially to do multiple sports at a
yeah.
like amateur high level. And then I just was like, where am I going from here? I'm mid 30s. What am I going to do? And I'm not going to get stronger into my 40s. Where am I going to grow? I mean, I'm going to bike pack. I'm going to do big trips. I'm going to ride a lot, but I'm hitting the limit of how good I can get. without just insane amounts of training, and it just didn't feel worth it. And so that's where that additional curiosity is, like piano, and I've been drawing a lot, and I write a lot, and I play music, and so that stuff felt like there was just a lot more growth potential and also a lifetime of growth versus trying to squeeze more out of a rock.
Yeah.
At some point there just wasn't much there. And if i'm if I'm not growing, I'm like the Pareto guy, I guess, the 80-20 principle. When I start hitting that 80-90% proficiency in something, it's just, I don't get as much enjoyment out of mastery as I do of full on acceleration, learning more.
Yeah, yeah, I understand that. And now this one might be tough, but have you thought of this before? Or what comes to your mind when I think like, I understand the concept of like continued growth and development, right? And then also balancing that out, not just
Mhm.
physical, right? For me, I was never a big, you know, like reader. I really just wasn't. I just, you dumb athlete, right? uh, and so I realized that, kind of like getting out of college, like physical, I was playing ball, like all I did was like work out and eat healthy and stuff. So for me, it was reading and then learning about investing, were two things outside of like my career that I really wanted to dive into. And then this year, I've been trying to get more into creative acts, writing. I find writing and drawing. So, of course, learning is good, but then like putting stuff out into the world, even if it's right, just in my little journal I keep with me everywhere, that's good too. But so what do you think about that continued growth, whatever angle it is? Why do you think that aids in happiness? I don't think there's a right answer. I just
Yeah, and I don't even know that it applies for everybody. It definitely applies for me. I just
yeah.
I mean, with my business, I think part of the reason that I was okay stepping down from full on was that it was starting to feel rote, where I
Hmm.
wasn't expanding my skill set. And I mean, with traveling, same thing. After 3 years, we're like, let's go do something else. And now after COVID, like, well, we're talking about living abroad because I'm getting my citizenship in the EU. So that for me, I think there's always going to
Hmm.
be these periods of growth and then periods where you're on a plateau, enjoying it and just doing the thing.
Yeah.
And so,
That's interesting.
but the longer I'm on a plateau, the more I'm like, gotta be nice to bike up a hill. And then you get sick of biking uphill at some point, and you want to be on top, get the view, and then just coast. So or go downhill and like just have fun. I almost tripped off my treadmill. These things are dangerous when they're not on.
Yeah, right. I think if you almost look at like, just like a sine wave, right? But like inside another one, right? I think you need these like every day for me, I need to feel challenged, right? I like to
Hmm.
start my day with it. Like start my day with a meditation where I'm pushing myself to the limit. I do like a breathing meditation where I'm like pushing myself, right? And then hit the gym. Like I like that. And then usually I come home and have like a slow, relaxing breakfast, right? So it's like, you know, just like kind of just like, oh man, I got after it this morning. I'm relaxing now. Maybe call my
Yeah,
mom or something, and then grind at work. And then after work, just go take a walk without looking at my phone, without whatever. If I want to stop and stare at the lake for a while, and then like you said in life, right? I think that's like the daily one, but then you also have, the annual or however long they are, monthly, because sometimes, with like work projects, or I should just say projects, like I know you got that crypto project going on, like, you find motivation that you're going to work much, much harder on that for a while. And then you're going to want to like slow down, right? And go
hmm,
bike pack somewhere.
yeah, yeah. I think that's just that fits my personality because I tend to latch onto something like a terrier and just like go for it. And then at some point I'm like, well, I'm gonna go do something else. And that just has worked for me. And I think that level of intensity is good. Like you can think about balance in terms of at all moments. Like I only spend 15 minutes on each activity per day because I'm balanced. Like, well, how do you
Yeah.
ever get good at something? I might be a generalist in the sense that I do many things, but I go intensely enough that I'm like advanced
Yeah.
intermediate is always kind of my goal. I don't want to be master or even like advanced, but if I can do these things and feel like I'm top 10% in it, then that's good enough for me. There's
Yeah.
a lot of enjoyment and happiness there.
Yeah, so I want to go back to, you said terrier, latch on, and then at some point, you release you release your bite, right? I think what that takes is awareness, right?
Yeah.
And one of the themes that I hope comes up, of course, I'll be digging for it a little bit, but I hope comes up in this podcast with different episodes is awareness, because to me, that's the gateway to peace and happiness from what I've experienced and learned so far. Who knows? That could change. But the way I kind of define awareness is just I almost defined it using awareness, but just kind of understanding what's going on moment to moment
Hmm.
without judging it, right? Just knowing like, oh, this is something that's going on, right? So if you are spending a ton of time on physical stuff, that could easily turn into a habit. And you might not really even know that that's like going on. Like, I think a lot of people, I have people in my life that tell me like they're healthy and they're happy. And like they spend all their time complaining. Like, I'm like, are you healthy and happy? And like, it's okay
Right.
if you're not, right? Of course, we all go up and down, like, and everyone's here. I'm not here to judge. We're here to support, but I think it's actually knowing what's going on, and then that judgment piece, right? Not just like coming in with a preconceived notion like, oh, working out's good. Oh, exercise is good, right? Well, it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, well, if you exercise 12 hours a day, every day, you probably have a horrible relationship with your family and you're probably not doing enough at work, right? uh,
Right.
so like you can't just have these preconceived notions, kind of entering to it. So
Totally. Yeah, I think validation is a big part of it too, because it's easy to not get validated if you're bragging about not talking, playing World of Warcraft all night, every night. Like,
mhm.
you're probably not going to get validation for that. But if you're working out and you're like, I'm going on hard bike rides in a community where people really respect that, that's validated and reinforced in a way that makes it really hard to get outside of that echo chamber. And
Mhm.
that was difficult for me because people move to Bend to play outside. And so, how do you find a musical community or a foreign language community when it's not a place that attracts that? And so, that judgment and self knowledge about what is going to make me happy and how I want to spend my time,
Yeah.
it was tough to get there. I mean, it really was. Like, I had to leave Strava. I left social media. I mean, like the Instagram influencer thing was just like, it's not serving me anymore. It's like wanting to keep me on this treadmill that I know isn't making me happy anymore. But
Yeah.
it's so hard to let go of that. Like, oh, I got a bunch of likes when I post a photo of me biking. It's like,
Well,
what, do I want to do that for the rest of my life because people think it's cool?
do you think, I mean, ego probably plays quite a bit into that, right?
Oh
You know,
yeah.
dude, it's how could it not, right? Every time like you're biking or talking about biking, people are like, oh, like Dakota's so good. It's like
Totally.
that makes us all feel good, right?
Yeah, yeah. And then, I mean, I'm meeting you and Clayton sitting there talking about like he can't believe how fast I am on a bike, and it's like that reinforcement loop
Yeah.
is really tough to get outside of, and just be like, you know what? It's like, yeah, I did that, but I don't do that anymore. Now to go ride with those same guys, and I'm slow compared to where I was,
Yeah.
and and to not care and just let it go and be like, whatever, I can still have a lot of fun. And when you point the bike downhill, I can still go fast, but I'm just not. I'm not putting 15, 20 hours into biking plus rock climbing plus running plus skiing. Like, yeah, you get pretty fit if it's basically a full time job.
Yeah. And what's really interesting too is, I think awareness plays another factor into it is, we start to do things just because we judge them as good. The first person I had on this episode, Jason Hine, I'm going to live with him in Banff actually when we go
That's
up to
good.
Canada.
That's fun.
Um, he got into ultra running, and he's the one that got me into ultra running. And the reason he got into it was he was at the gym power cleaning, right? And then hitting the treadmill hard. And a trainer comes up to him and he's like, dude, what are you training for? Like, and he was just like, he's 23 years old. He's like, I don't know. And the guy's like, what you just power clean 275. You got it for something. It was just he wasn't right. He's just like
Yeah,
he's like, no, I'm just working out. And he just realized, something that I've questioned with myself quite a lot is, you know, if you are going to put 2 hours a day in like the gym, it's like, what's the goal behind it, right?
yeah,
Because, and then you start, if you start setting goals, it's crazy how things start happening. I think
yeah.
that's what the book The Secret's about, huh?
I mean, I used to lift weights all the time because when I was playing baseball in high school, it mattered. Like that strength mattered. And then I just continued that when I went to college. And then I started rock climbing and I was like, why do I need this 25 pounds of upper body strength? Like, I don't need to be able to bench double my body weight. This does not benefit me when I'm trying to haul my body up a cliff. And so I stopped lifting for like max and started doing other stuff.
Yeah.
And taking that mindset with other stuff has been good for me. And just saying, how does this actually, what am I doing with this? Why am I running wind sprints if I'm a distance runner and all I ever do is like cruise, or biking, same thing? Why am
Yeah.
I sweating, like doing VO2 max training when I'm doing 9 hour rides for 2 weeks straight in Colorado? I
Yeah.
don't need my VO2 max to be high for that. I need to do endurance rides.
Well, what you just said was like the key, right? Whatever your discipline is, biking, painting, learning a new whatever, business, that it's great to learn and have that be your discipline, but you have to extrapolate that lesson, right? Like you said you're like, okay, I'm lifting heavy. Why am I lifting heavy? I'm trying to rock climb. Okay, now the concept there is be aware of what I'm doing, check myself regularly, make sure that my actions actually lead to my goal, right? And then extrapolate that. There's a book called Thinking in Systems, and it
Hmm.
uses the word systems very, very broadly. So it's right. You have an electrical system behind, in your house. Your body's a system. You have a plumbing system. Your business is a system. The society. There's a million systems, and they're all interconnected. And the number one thing I got from this book, I don't even think this was intended to be the number one takeaway. This was mine though, was that the goal of a system is not the stated goal of the system, but the outcome of its actions. And to me, that just spoke really, really deeply to me because I kept telling myself, my goal in life's to live it up. And what that means
Hmm.
is get a lot of experience, right? Push myself so I can learn about myself and see where that experience takes me and learn from it and share it with people. Of course, along the way, business, making money has to be a part of it. Um, but I was working much more on that and not as much on the gaining experience and wisdom. And I was like, okay, so like I could say that my goal is this, but is that really my goal? Because like that I'm
Yeah.
not doing that. Um, and I don't, that's that to me is something that's like cemented into my head that the goal is really about the actions of, or like the outcome of the actions that you do.
Yeah. I like that. It's so easy to get wrapped up in those actions and not bring your head up and be like, where is this actually taking me? Like,
Yeah.
did my raft go down this canyon and I didn't even notice? And now I'm just like, oh no, I wanted to turn back there. What do I do? And
Yeah.
yeah, and then setting those daily activities that are going to take you where you want to go and then just executing on it. And
For
like
sure.
like daily piano practice, your daily workout, the daily meditation, reading 15 pages a day, and trying to get those done as often as possible.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you a question about that because I'm scribbling some notes over here. And what I got was, you were talking about your business while you were working. You're talking about trying to live like you're retired, which uh, for anyone that's thinking retired means I sit on the beach all day, that's not the retired we're talking about. We're talking about the 4 hour work week type of retired.
Yeah, that's what
Um,
got me thinking about business.
yeah, you
That book.
you you mentioned fire, which if you haven't, if you're unfamiliar with fire, financial independence, retire early. It's just, I mean, Dakota could mention much more about it than me, but it's kind of a thought process of how to live it up in your young years. And then you also mentioned the book, Your Money or Your Life, which I have not read. I will read after this. Oh, by the way, I started reading what was that book? I forgot the title.
Creative acts for creative people.
I haven't gotten far. I'm on chapter two.
Cool.
Um, but so all those things kind of brought me to this question. So as I mentioned, the last few weeks I've opened up a lot of my time, and I'm trying to keep it open and not just jam shit in it. How do you manage that time, and how do you kind of like use that time? Because I have a natural feeling of guilt inside of me
Mhm.
that it took a couple weeks of meditation to find that guilt's the word. But like for example, I love getting up early, right? No matter what, very early. I started meditating and I went to the gym that first day, Dakota, and like I said, it wasn't like today. I was in there for 60 minutes. I was like, I should get out of here. And I realized, like, I think it would have best served me to stay, but I felt like I needed,
Mm.
like I didn't deserve that extra hour at the gym. I needed to go like work. Like, have you felt that? Do you feel it regularly, or have you kind of mastered that? And if so, what's that like?
Oh yeah, I don't have any problems with that. My time is my own always. Yeah, totally. I mean, it's so hard to balance, especially in the capitalist society like the US, that personal just do something because I want to with productivity, especially for me, because I've always been like taskless, getting things done, and just every day, like, what's the priority? And
Yeah,
so to just have a day that I leave open and just like, I'm going to go for a bike ride. I'm going to play piano. I'm going to do like a little project around the house and do some work and just feel okay lying on the couch and reading a fantasy novel like I did for like a week straight 2 months ago when I got way into Mistborn. And to not feel guilty about that is so hard. So I wish I had a solution for you, but I think
yeah,
it's like knowing yourself and when you need to take your foot off the gas and what it'll accomplish or what's the cost if you go and cut your workout short to go sit and like send a couple emails that will get done anyway, right? The work will usually get done, and if it can't get done within a balanced life, then you got to reevaluate it. And there's going to be periods where it doesn't work, where
yeah.
you're just throwing down work because you got to do it. But
And that's fine, right? Like
yeah,
that's something too, is temporary versus long term. Like I'm sure you have too.
yeah,
I've had 10-hour plus days for a month straight, and I was cool with it because I was like, hey, like I signed up for this. Like I got this
yeah,
new client. I'm trying to like get their shit right. Like let's do it. Um, and one thing I always tell myself is you make choices, all they're going to do is lead you to a different experience, not better or worse, right?
yeah,
Just different, and it's what you do it from there. But I really don't want to use the word awareness as a scapegoat, but it sounds like what you said relates to that to as well. And I'm definitely on this kick of trying to increase awareness and learn about awareness more. And by learn about awareness, I would say experience it more
yeah.
deeply. Um, because like what you said was know yourself and know when you need to push, pull,
Mm-hmm.
whatever the case may be. Like that's what I find is the best thing I could do is consistently and regularly reevaluate my values and principles, what actions relate to those, and just try to go with my gut, you know, like
Mm-hmm.
just try to go with my gut. And that can be a slippery slope if the inner work's not being done, right? The inner work really does need to be done, but that's at least I'm 3 weeks into it, and that's what I'm working on.
You're like a Zen superstar, man.
Zen superstar. Now
Yeah.
the guy we had on a couple episodes before, Tony Benici. Both of his parents were actually, Zen at like I'd say enthusiasts, and they lived it, right? And they were, I believe they were Buddhist, and they got him very, very into it. But they didn't call it Zen. Like they raised him on Zen, but
Yeah.
they didn't tell him that, right? They just like he was telling me a story about how he had to go ring the dinner bell a few times and let it ring all the way out before he came in, right? It's like a very meditative thing, like ring
Yeah.
it and like let it go, ring it, let go. And he was like, he just thought that was just like, oh, I get to ring this bell as a kid. And he said he literally remembers enjoying it. I don't know why, but just enjoying it, right? For years he would do that. And it's like a practice that like he carries with him. So
That's cool.
yeah, he's cool. I
Yeah.
definitely want to learn as much as I can from Tony.
Both my parents are Buddhist.
Really?
Yeah. So you've got a high percentage of Buddhist influenced individuals.
What
Yeah,
was
we
tell me what that was that like being raised?
they so my dad picked it up later, but yeah, we were like would go to Buddhist Sangha, which is like the gathering, uh, and it was very much a practice in my parents' life, and I don't think that I really registered anything about it. So I was just trying to distance myself from my parents mostly. And it's funny because now I'm coming back around to that. I've done a lot of meditation, and my lifestyle is much closer to theirs than it was for a long time. Like they're
Mm-hmm.
both they both have art degrees and taught art, and there's always lots of creativity in my family. And I was like, I'm gonna be an engineer. My mom's like, you're the black sheep. And so now I'm coming back around to that, and luckily I don't have to support myself with the art, which makes it less stressful.
Yeah.
But
It
yeah,
comes
it's
full circle though.
yeah, and that kind of like mindset, the non-attachment. I've always been a minimalist, and it's nice to see that in myself. And I'm coming back to what feels more grounded and less pursuing material gain and trying to reinvest in the community and people and friends. And that's, I mean, to bring it back to happiness, I look at things through the like the growth mindset, but also if you're going to spend your time on something, especially like a conversation with someone, is this going to be good as a connection piece? Like, am I feeling more connected through this activity? Or is this like going out on a bike ride and trying to tear each other's legs off? What is the benefit there? You're not talking, it's a competition. Like, and there's a place for competition. Like when you sign up for a race, people are there to compete. But taking that mindset elsewhere, and I think you can apply that to a lot of things. Like, why are you doing this, and how is it going to increase your connection to people or deepen your experience in the world?
Yeah.
And if you're not doing that, then what's the point? It's like money is a drug. Sure, that's what I think what most people do. It's like a way to keep score. It's a drug, and disconnecting from that is really difficult. And I
I
still
mean,
get dragged into it. It's still cool, like work on a crypto project and be like, boom, it's worth that much. Cool.
yeah.
And I'm like, but I don't need it, or I'd sell my house and move to Portugal.
Yeah.
So what's the point other than the intellectual curiosity?
No, and then of course, there is it does money does solve money problems, right? And
Yeah,
of course it does relieve anxiety um at a core, but I think Tim Ferriss has what we are talking about 4 hour work week. Tim Ferriss has a practice. He talked about once a month he lives for 3 days as if he was poor, right? So
yeah,
eat
stoic.
yeah, eats rice and beans. Oh yeah, I guess that's like an ancient Stoic thing, right? Eats rice and beans, sleeps on the floor, no technology, and the whole time you kind of meditate on like, is this what I was so scared of, right?
Yeah,
And now, uh, even though I am pretty, I would say I'm very confident I can live like that and be happy. I don't know if that's how I would choose to live, right? Because you'd be missing out on um, opportunities for sure, which aren't
yeah,
the opportunities aren't necessarily gonna bring new happiness, but
yeah,
they'll definitely pique curiosity, right? Like you have more options with the more resources you have,
yeah.
especially financial.
Well, that's
Uh,
what money is, right? It's just when you have money, you have choice. You get to choose what to do. So you have narrower options when you don't have money. Like you can
yeah,
only work certain jobs, live somewhere, and once you have enough choice, then extra choice is it's diminished
It's a
utility, I think.
paradox.
Yeah, in economic terms, it's just at some point an extra $10,000 has a lot less utility because it's not going to change your life. But for some people, $10,000 when you're right out of college is like, whoa, I can get a car and a suit and like get a job and drive to that job. Whereas later, when you have those things, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, yeah. It's that's interesting. You're talking about it as you're talking about money as like utility. When I think of utility, I think of now this is something that I have thought of, man, I mean, as long as I can remember. I had no idea where I came to this. I mean, I'm sure I didn't make it up. I'm sure I read it from somewhere or something, but I always just viewed life or resources as three things, right? Money, time, and energy. Those three things I viewed as like the main resources in this world. And what's interesting is I think I would rate them time, energy, money. And I think most people flip it, right? And would do, money, energy, time when you're looking at their actions, right? Not what they would say. And
Yeah,
I've just been trying to live by that, knowing that resources are what you need. And right. So if time and energy are the top two, energy is one that slips, Dakota, right? You mentioned you're a vegan. We talked about your walking treadmill. I know both of those things are the end game behind them is to have more consistent, focused health and energy, right? Like
sure.
that's a I know why you do it. I do want to talk to you, probably side note about the vegan thing because I've never tried it.
Yeah,
But I think it'd be foolish to not at least try,
yeah.
And this is what I'll ask you. What's the minimum amount of time you think a try like is worth trying? Like a month or two? Think you need to go longer, less?
No, I think it, I mean, you can do the full dive in thing. Um, and if you do that, I think, yeah, a couple weeks or a month, because then you can get some recipes you really like and feel good about it versus just, suck it up.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
a lot of people try a new diet of any kind and they go so hard into it without having a plan that you're like, you're eating butter shakes if you're going keto, or you're eating kale salads if you're going vegan. Like, well, you don't have to do that. There's lots of ways to still have appetizing meals in whatever diet. And so I would just say, think about it like instead of taking things away, what can you add to your diet
Yeah.
to like try a vegan meat instead of chicken one day a week or something. And for me,
Yeah.
I mean, it was a 3 or 4 year transition for
Mm.
me. And I just was feeling way better. Like realized, hey, milk makes me feel absolutely horrible. I'm not going to drink milk anymore.
Dude, it's you said a lot of great things in there. I think the best was add things versus pull away.
Yeah.
I actually studied habit change and behavioral science for the last few years, and
Hmm.
it's a psychological thing. If you tell yourself you can't have something, you want it,
Yeah.
right? And then if you just like if we're gonna take it to the extreme and you're gonna eat, 12 serving of vegetables and 6 serving of fruit, every day, there's not that much room for junk food in there. I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
like
You're
how much are
full.
you gonna fucking eat, man?
Yeah,
Um,
well, the fiber fills you up, and then your body's not getting hunger signals when your stomach's full. But you can eat chocolate bars forever before you're going to have a full stomach. And the crowd things out or add, that's the same with habits, right? Like if you want to not watch TV all the time, you got to add things.
yeah, because when you sit
'Cause it,
around bored, you're gonna watch TV.
yeah, so you have to have other things that you're adding. And the same thing for people who retire. We're like, oh my God, I'm so bored. It's like, well, you gotta have a few things that you have lined up before. And that's the big thing with fires. People don't create the net. They're like, oh yeah, I'm on the
Yep.
edge. I think I can jump. And you're like, you have so much money, you've got to quit. What are you doing? You're like 65. You got to quit, and
You
they're still
gotta
scared.
quit.
Yeah, I mean, I have this conversation with a lot of people. Actually, a blog reader just reached out. It was awesome. She's like, that conversation we had 3 years ago, you probably don't even remember it. And she quit her job and bought a van. She's like, best decision I've made.
Dude, that's
And
that,
yeah, that kind of thing is just, I don't know. So yes to adding and crowding out the bad habits or things you
yeah,
don't
man.
want.
Absolutely. I'm laughing because I literally just flipped over this folder. I didn't even look what it was. I got into painting too because me and Emma were in Hawaii for 4 months, 3 months, and we didn't watch TV once for 4 months. So again, kind of sitting at home, like, what do you got to do?
Yeah, let's see
And
it.
we took a picture. This was Kahaluu Beach. I'm no I'm
Yeah,
no painter, man, but I had a blast doing
that's
it.
painting. What are you talking about?
Oh yeah. Hey, yeah, I'm with it. No judging, right?
Yeah, no,
You know,
you just
watercolors are fun because if you like kind of like it's very malleable throughout the entire process, which is
yeah.
cool.
I mean, I did a portrait challenge in January where
You
because I
sent me
drew,
that. Dude, it was
yeah,
awesome.
because I'd drawn portraits exactly 0 times in my life. I was like, this sucks. I'd like to improve or like see what I can do. So I spent a half hour a night drawing portraits, and it's just cool what you can accomplish with dedicated time. I spent 15 hours drawing that easily could have been just frittered away on social media or something. And now I feel like I can draw a passable portrait and know the places where I could really improve if I put time into it.
Dude, it's fun. The most interesting man in the world, Dakota.
Oh, stop it.
Well,
Just trying to
dude,
be happy, right?
right?
Happy, just trying to be happy, connect to people, and make whatever small difference I can.
There's a lot of wisdom here. I really appreciate you hopping on, Dakota. I know you got a meeting to jump to. Me too. And you painted those paintings behind you, right? No,
Yeah, not a big deal.
just whip those up in the free time.
Yeah.
Dude, when am I gonna see you next? You coming up to
That's a
Banff?
good, no, skiing, not a downhill ski. When you go somewhere with mountain biking, you just let me know.
You mean you can't just like throw some snow tires on? Hey, I think we're gonna try to stop through Bend on the drive back. Just make like a little
Cool.
loop extra. So we'll
Let me know.
definitely reach out
Cool.
for
Thanks for the
sure,
time,
man.
Sean.
Appreciate you joining.
Catch you later.
Thanks.